This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson.
Yes, this is your host, Harry Wilkinson, and welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. This is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks, events, happenings in the world, happenings in politics, the media, all of the things that we are exposed to during the week, all of the things that we feel concern us, and we take a step back and we look at it from a higher perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from the point of view that we are creating these stories, and we create these stories in order to experience and to remind ourselves or reconnect with the truth of who and what we really are, which is connected. Divine mind, if you will. Some people like to use the word, use the word divine mind or the G word, God, however you might perceive it to be. The idea that we are creating it all, and that we are, in our highest level, the highest metaphysical level is what I'm talking about, that we are one with divine mind. So we try to take a look at these things as keys, if you will, keys to our inner wisdom, keys to our higher nature. It can be difficult, especially in a week like this when we've had very difficult stories. Stories designed to sort of push buttons of fear and panic. Stories like the Ebola crisis. Stories like the beheading of people by IS, the Islamic group. Things like that are really designed to get us all riled up. But we can look at those things, and we can see the stories we are telling, and we can see how it's setting up the drama for us that we are creating. And we create them because I think we really like our stories. These are illusions. This is not the truth of who we are. There's really only one truth of who we are, and that's love. But, at a certain level of our existence, at this level of illusion that we like to live in, that's kind of boring. So, it's much more exciting to create these things and challenge ourselves to work through them. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about the upcoming Halloween celebrations, what that means. And, of course, there's always, or in recent years, it hasn't always been that way, but in recent years, there's been controversy about the Halloween traditions, if you will. And that controversy generally comes from more conservative religious groups, conservative Christians, who, number one, don't understand the significance of it religiously, and number two, liken it to paganism. And there are some pagan roots for sure. However, there's almost as many pagan roots in Christmas celebrations as there are in Halloween celebrations. So we'll talk about that. And we're also going to continue our discussion about heroes of consciousness. It's a segment of the show I brought back because I feel it bears repeating. These are gentlemen, most of them are scientists, but not all. Some are writers, some are great thinkers, but they are people who are expanding our understanding of consciousness. They are people who are willing to look at the areas that traditional science has not been willing to look at and not been open to, and to see the breakthroughs that they've made. So we'll talk about Russell Targ and also William Browd, who we talked about last week as well. So that's coming up. And we're also going to look at the state of things in the Middle East, and particularly this group that calls itself Islamic State. We're going to take a look at that and the controversy surrounding that. But first I want to talk a little bit about the Ebola situation. And the recent news, you may have heard, there was a nurse by the name of Miss Pham, and she had contracted the Ebola virus. Now, she had been monitoring herself, and when she saw that she was beginning to show symptoms, she contacted the hospital and had herself put into quarantine. And she was, I believe, over here at NIH, National Institute of Health in Maryland. And this week, recently, it was discovered that she had a clean bill of health. In other words, the treatment that she had worked very well and has made her Ebola free. But what caught my attention about this nurse is what she did. You know, this woman went out and put herself in harm's way to help other people that she didn't need to help. As a nurse, well, you know, in particular, she was one of the nurses that helped Thomas Eric Duncan. This was the gentleman who became infected with Ebola, and who traveled to the United States from Liberia, and who unfortunately passed away. But the bravery of this woman and the inspiration that she provides by, you know, having basically defeated it or beaten it, is inspirational. But more inspirational is what she said. She was asked to come to the White House, and President Barack Obama gave her a big hug in the Oval Office. And I think that was very much a very visual representation to help people understand that there was nothing to fear about Ebola. I think it was a really clever photo opportunity, but also a very inspirational thing to do, because what she said was that she felt fortunate and blessed to be standing here today, and that she thanked the healthcare teams in Dallas and at the NIH and everybody who helped her. And she was in such great spirits, you know, and she's cleared. Of course, you would be very happy about that. But the fact that she wasn't angry at the situation in which she was became infected to begin with. It's really remarkable that she felt so well. She felt moved to be humble about it, rather than to take on perhaps some of the things that were missing in the protection of her in dealing with this disease. So, I think it's really an amazing thing that she's beaten this virus, and the hope that it gives everyone, and also just to know that there are people out there who want to help, and that's their first impulse, is to help, knowing that they are possibly putting themselves at risk. Very inspirational. So that is Miss Nina Pham, and well, thank goodness she's come through it all. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit now about the situation in the Middle East, because it is, of course, something we're going to, unfortunately, seems like we're going to be involved with for quite some time. And I think it's important to understand what is going on, and why IS, Islamic State, has been able to be successful, not only successful, but parts of their ideology popular, actually, among Muslims. Now, past couple of weeks, there's been a big controversy. I mean, this is always a controversial topic, but it kind of came to a head with an interaction on the comedian Bill Maher's show, in which he and his guest, who was an author, writing about, oddly enough, how spirituality and religion are different, and how we need to focus on spirituality and get away from religious dogma. Interestingly enough, for a spiritual person then to turn around and say that the entire Muslim community is, I believe the quote was, the motherlode of bad ideas. If I'm not mistaken, yes, the motherlode of bad ideas was the quote from this gentleman who was a guest on Bill Maher's show. The guest's name, by the way, let me get his name here very quickly. Sam Harris. He's the author of this book, and another guest on the show, the actor Ben Affleck, found that horrendously offensive, and challenged them on that statement. Harris is saying that Islam is full of bad ideas. And Affleck is basically saying that to be dismissive of the entire faith is to not understand it, and to be rather ignorant and racist in a sense. So this has been a huge deal over the past couple of weeks, particularly among liberals, whom Maher and his guest Sam Harris were actually criticizing for not being more critical of Islam as a religion. And everybody has been trying to explain that, the actions of Islamic State don't reflect the actions or beliefs of the entire Muslim community. And that has been countered by Bill and by Sam Harris by saying that, there actually have been polls out saying that there's a large number of Muslims that actually support what Islam is what ISIS or IS or Islamic State or whatever they're calling it these days. There are a large number of Muslims who may not support the violence, but believe in what the Islamic State is trying to do. So that's a point, and I think it needs to be explained more about why that is. So that's what I want to talk about. And there's a great article here on BBC News Magazine called "What's the Appeal of a Caliphate?" Because that is what the Islamic State is calling itself. In June, they called itself a caliphate that will stretch across parts of Syria and Iraq. And the leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has named himself the Caliph, which means leader. So, IS declared itself this caliphate. And the idea of a caliphate is very appealing to Muslims. And here's why. A unified Islamic State, or caliphate, is basically how the Muslim world, at their peak, at their highest, achievements, and this is, you have to understand, this is a world, the Muslim world, that made significant contributions to art and music and architecture. 90 years ago, the last caliphate, that was the Ottoman caliphate, was abolished. But most Muslims living in like Egypt and Morocco, Indonesia, Pakistan, do support unifying all Islamic countries into a new caliphate. And that is what they are responding to when they're responding to a positive understanding of what Islamic State is trying to do. I think most would disagree with their methods, but this new caliphate that many Muslims would like to see happen is something that has deep resonance with them. So, in Arabic, Khalifa means a representative or successor. And in the Quran, that's also linked to government. So this is another thing that, people like Bill Maher and Sam Harris haven't got a grasp of yet. The fact that, because there's no other religion that's as deeply entwined with governance than the Muslim religion. Christianity was for quite some time in the Middle Ages, but it's been a long time since any religion has been the basis of a government. But the Islamic religion sets out very clear guidelines for politics and governance. So these issues, which sadly people are sometimes violent about, are political issues, not religious issues so much. But I digress. So, Khalifa means representative or successor. Adam was thought to be the first. Then David and Solomon. They were all each said to be God's Khalifa on earth. And then, of course, when the Prophet Muhammad passed away in 632, his successor uh, was given the title of Caliph. And he was the first of four so-called rightly guided caliphs who brought ushered in the new Islamic era. And these caliphs, the rightly guided caliphs, were all appointed with popular consent. In other words, they were what would in those days be considered elected by the people. And Islamic law ensures that the caliph must be the choice of the people and appointed in order to be responsible to them and not above the law. However, the Shia Muslims have a different version of this, and they believe that the first two of those four caliphs staged a coup to frustrate leadership claims of the Prophet's cousin. And so there's been a split between what Sunni Muslims think and what the Sunni and Shia Muslims and other Muslims think a caliphate needs to be. So this has powerful appeal, particularly to Sunni Muslims who have been living under autocratic regimes. And as I said, 70 years, 70 years after the Prophet's death, but this era that the four rightly guided caliphs ushered in created a Muslim world that stretched from Spain and Morocco right through to Central Asia and southern bits of Pakistan. It was a huge empire, huge empire. And this is what the Muslim people would like to see happen again. As a sovereign people ruling a great kingdom, I think this is what their desire is. It was an Islamic golden age. And, their rule, basically the kingdom itself became so large that power began to fragment. It became hard to control all of the lands. And so the idea of a caliphate being able to rule everything, one person, began to, waver a little bit. And then Baghdad fell to the Mongols at some point. It's a long, long history here. But then somewhere in the early 16th century, the Ottoman sultans ruled the new Islamic world for the next 400 years. And finally, the caliphate was abolished in 1924. By a gentleman by the name of Kemal Ataturk, who believed that ending this institution was important to save what was left of this empire, the Ottoman Empire, basically, and to turn it into a secular nation state. And that's what he did. The last caliph was exiled in Paris. But however, that institution that was abolished was something that had a profound effect on a lot of Muslims who still wanted to have something like an Islamic state. And as modern mores and technology have increased, the desire for that has, I think, grown. In the mid 20th century, this idea, which they call Pan-Arabism, all of these countries joined together. A gentleman by the name of Gamal Abdel Nasser established something called the United Arabic Republic, joining Egypt and Syria. But when Israel was founded, that kind of ruined, and the military might of Israel kind of destroyed the idea of Pan-Arabism. And so there hasn't really been an opportunity for Muslim countries to come together as one country. And this is at the basis of all of the, I think, unrest, is this desire for Islamic law, to have a caliphate that is a leader that believes in the laws that these people believe in, and that stands in stark contrast to, dictatorships, oppressive state security, military type regimes that a lot of these people feel don't have any legitimacy at all because they don't follow Muslim law. So this is behind a lot of this. So when people like Bill Maher say that there are, a lot of Muslims that like what Islamic State is doing, it's a very misleading statement. Yes, a lot of these Muslims would like to see a unified Arabic Muslim state. And that's what they are responding positively to. They're not responding positively to beheading people and blowing buildings up. That's not what they're responding to. But they are responding to the idea of a unified state, which has been denied them, even as the Arabic states are starting to come together. They still haven't gotten recognition from the United States or the United Nations, because the United States is standing in the way of that recognition. So when these things happen, of course, that sets the stage, that makes groups like Islamic State very attractive for those who want to see, Arabic states come together. So I thought it was important to talk about that. And we're running close on time here. So we'll have to get back to Russell Targ next week, but let's talk about Halloween quickly. So Halloween is actually a Christian feast called All Hallows Day. It's a remembrance of those who passed away, saints and martyrs. But All Hallows Eve is still a Christianized, ceremony, but it's thought to have been influenced by harvest festivals, Celtic harvest festivals, that had pagan roots. Particularly one called Samhain, which also people say has some relationship to Christmas as well. But things like trick or treating, which was originally called guising. Costume parties, pumpkins, bonfires, all of that. Are sort of modern contrivances. Basically, All Hallows Eve was a rather serious service in the church, where candles would be lighted on the graves of the dead, and some denominations required abstinence from meat, and other things. The consumption of apples actually comes from that. So the bobbing for apples that is popular may have its roots in that. So in any and in any event, this is considered to be a hallowed sacred time in conjunction with harvest, because harvest is a time when we reap what we have sown, if you will. When we honor what has passed and get ready for what is coming. And that's basically what All Hallows Eve and All Saints or Hallows Day signifies. It's a remembrance of what you've been through, of those that have passed, what has been given. It's a harvesting of all of those things. And taking that harvest and moving forward. So, I wish you a very happy All Hallows week, and perhaps